What happens when a football club threatens to abandon their 125-year-old home because of a rent dispute that exploded from £250,000 to £1 million per year? This is the incredible story of Nottingham Forest, a club that seriously considered moving 6 miles away to build a brand new 50,000-seat stadium, sparking such outrage that their own fans chanted anti-relocation songs during matches. But here's the twist. What started as bitter controversy has become one of the most exciting stadium projects in English football, transforming the City Ground into what could be the largest stadium in the East Midlands. So how did a bitter rent war turn into a £130 million football revolution? Let's find out. The crisis facing Nottingham Forest wasn't just about capacity, it was decades of problems finally catching up with the club. The City Ground has been Forest's home since 1898, a place woven into the identity of both the team and the city. But as football evolved, the ground fell further behind. The biggest issue is the main stand. Last rebuilt in the 1960s, it's now nearly 60 years old. Compared to the 3 newer stands, it feels outdated, cramped, and no longer fit for a Premier League side trying to compete at the top level. Geography made the challenge even tougher. For decades, Forest explored ways to rotate the pitch and expand, but the Trent end is squeezed right up against the riverbank. That left the club boxed in, unable to push outward, and forced to make do with a footprint that simply didn't suit modern football. Meanwhile, demand for tickets spiraled out of control. The City Ground's capacity sits just above 30,000, but Forest's support is far greater than that. Tens of thousands of fans remain stuck on waiting lists, desperate for a chance to attend matches. Forest's long-awaited promotion back to the Premier League in 2022, after 23 years away, pushed the problem into overdrive. Excitement swept through the city. Suddenly, a club with 2 European Cups in its history was back on the biggest stage. Yet the stadium, instead of being a point of pride, became a glaring weakness. It couldn't keep up with the scale of the moment. And this frustration isn't new. In 1968, disaster struck when a fire tore through the main stand during a First Division match against Leeds. Miraculously, there were no casualties, but the stand was destroyed, along with countless trophies, records, and memories. Later came a series of bold ideas, each collapsing under pressure. A proposed 45,000-seat super stadium at Wilford Power Station was abandoned after Brian Clough threatened to resign if it went ahead. In 2007, a planned 50,000-seater in Clifton was scrapped due to fierce local opposition. One project after another crumbled, leaving the club stuck in the same outdated ground. This time, though, the situation was different. The Premier League's new financial rules meant clubs could spend no more than 85% of their revenue on wages and transfers. That put huge importance on matchday income. For Forest, the message was clear. Expansion was no longer about ambition, it was about survival. Then came the lease issue. Since 2011, Forest had been paying Nottingham City Council £250,000 a year for the land beneath the City Ground. After promotion, the council demanded over £1 million annually, a nearly 4-fold increase. Without redevelopment, that kind of rent could cripple the club in the long term. After decades marked by disasters, failed projects, financial pressures, and thousands of loyal supporters shut out on match days, Nottingham Forest had finally reached breaking point. At long last, the club is pushing forward with a true expansion of the City Ground. The vision that emerged from Forest's crisis is nothing short of spectacular, and it comes from people who know what the club means. The project is led by Benoit, a Nottinghamshire-based firm whose chairman, Graham Cartledge, and his son Tom are lifelong Forest fans. In fact, Tom is now Forest's chairman, which means this isn't just another architectural commission, it's personal. At the heart of the plan is the complete rebuilding of the Peter Taylor stand, named after Brian Clough's legendary assistant. But this isn't a simple replacement. What's being proposed is a transformation. The new 5-floor stand will create around 10,000 seats across 3 tiers, capped by a cantilevered roof that seems to float over the River Trent. Inside, it will house state-of-the-art player facilities and a wide mix of hospitality spaces designed to serve supporters on match days and guests all year round. Some of the features are genuinely eye-catching. The largest suite will welcome up to 1,200 guests, larger than entire stadiums in the lower leagues. Above the main concourse, a brand new Trentside lounge will give fans sweeping views of the river, turning a functional space into one of the most memorable spots at the city ground. But this is about more than just what happens inside. To make way for the new stand, outdated structures like the current Peter Taylor Stand and Champion Center will be cleared. In their place, Forest will finally gain something the ground has always lacked: a proper sense of arrival. A new plaza connecting Pavilion Road to Trentside North will change the way fans approach the stadium, creating a gateway worthy of the club's history. Even before construction begins, Forest have been making improvements. Safe standing has been introduced, hospitality areas modernized, and a new executive suite unveiled. After fan pressure, a bigger screen was also installed at the Trent end, replacing the outdated one squeezed between stands. The expansion will come in phases. Rebuilding the Peter Taylor Stand alone will lift capacity to around 35,000. But that's only the beginning. A later redevelopment of the Bridgeford Stand will push the total to 42,000 seats, a dramatic increase from the current 30,445, and a capacity that finally matches Forest's huge demand. What makes this project especially clever is how it embraces its unique riverside setting. Alongside the stadium, a new residential development will rise with views over the Trent, turning the ground into a hub that works 365 days a year. Now, here's where the story turns into a political thriller, one that nearly killed the entire project. The problem began with ownership of the land. The city ground doesn't actually belong to Forest. It sits on land owned by Nottingham City Council. Since 2011, Forest had paid a modest £250,000 a year in rent, but promotion to the Premier League changed the dynamic. Suddenly, the council wanted to raise that figure to over £1 million annually, almost 4 times higher. And then came the bombshell. They demanded a £250 million upfront payment for a new 250-year lease. To put that into perspective, that's nearly double what some Premier League clubs are worth. Forest's response stunned the city. In March 2024, Chairman Tom Cartledge revealed the club was seriously considering walking away from the city ground altogether. The alternative? A brand new 50,000-seat stadium in Towton, 6 miles outside the city center. The site, originally set aside for the cancelled HS2 railway project, offered room not just for a stadium, but also for training facilities, a setup reminiscent of Manchester City. And this wasn't just posturing. Forest began genuine due diligence on the Towton plan, while Nottinghamshire County Council publicly backed the idea, calling the club an economic powerhouse for the region. Meanwhile, delays were piling up. Construction was supposed to start in 2020, but slipped to 2023. Each missed deadline sent costs soaring. The Peter Taylor Stand rebuild, originally priced at £80 million in 2019, had ballooned to £130 million by 2024, more than a 60% increase in just 5 years. The planning process became its own saga. First submitted in late 2019, the application went through endless consultations, revisions, and negotiations. Early designs even included 250 riverside apartments, but this was scaled back to 170 after local pushback. Then came the twist. In May 2024, Nottingham City Council suddenly changed course, offering Forest the chance to buy the city ground freehold outright for £10 million, a tiny fraction of their earlier demands. But Forest made it clear any purchase would be conditional on securing planning approval for the expansion. They weren't just buying land, they were buying the right to transform it. Momentum finally shifted. By July 2024, Council leader Naghat Khan announced that a deal had been agreed in principle. And on June 26, 2025, Rushcliffe Borough Council's Planning Committee formally recommended approval. After years of delays, disputes, and drama, Forest's expansion dream was at last within reach, the end of one of the most drawn-out stadium battles in English football. Here's the bottom line. Nottingham Forest owner Evangelos Marinakis is personally funding one of the biggest private projects in the city's history. A Greek shipping billionaire with deep ambition, he's prepared to pour an eye-watering fortune into reshaping the city ground. The original idea was to partly pay for the stadium by selling nearly 170 apartments, but rising construction costs left that plan behind. Instead of cutting corners, Marinakis has simply decided to bankroll it himself. And his commitment goes far beyond bricks and steel. The club is also covering land purchases, relocating local groups, and investing in transport, cycling, healthcare, and education. All told, Phase 1 alone is heading towards £150 million, a staggering show of faith in the project. Why take such a risk? Because the demand is there. Forest have more than 21,000 fans stuck on a waiting list for tickets. Every new seat means steady revenue for decades, and with new Premier League spending rules arriving in 2025, bigger income directly translates into stronger squads on the pitch. But Marinakis isn't stopping at one stand. He's already looking at expanding the Bridgeford stand and building a state-of-the-art training facility with the ultimate dream of a 50,000 capacity stadium. That would push his total investment towards £250 million. Work could begin within the next year and a half, creating hundreds of construction jobs and leaving behind not just a football ground, but an entire regenerated riverside district. And that's the real story here. After 125 years of history, fires, failed plans, and bitter planning disputes, Forest are finally getting the stadium their ambitions deserve. What once looked like a rent-driven disaster has become the biggest expansion project the East Midlands has ever seen. For Marinakis, this isn't just about concrete and steel. It's a gamble that Nottingham Forest can return to the heights of European football. From rent disputes to regeneration, from anti-Toten chants to Champions League dreams, this saga proves that sometimes the boldest risks create the greatest rewards. So, what do you think? Will this huge investment turn Forest into a European powerhouse again? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe for more incredible football tales.